shocked, heartbroken, and full of reflection. Those are my feelings after researching and learning about more than 100 famous Black figures connected to the silent tragedies behind the spotlight, where alcohol dependency brought down even the greatest talents. And here is the video, 19 Black R&B legends who drank themselves to death. The truths revealed in the next few minutes might leave you stunned. However, with a gentle and humanistic storytelling perspective, this video is perfectly suited for you to turn on and listen to while resting, gathering for a meal with your family, or leisurely doing housework. Please follow the Our Memory Vault channel, hit the like button, and turn on the notification bell to receive our earliest videos. Now, let us go straight to our first figures. Whitney Houston. When mentioning R&B and pop, no list could be complete without the name Whitney Houston. She was honored by the world with a single most powerful title, The Voice, possessing gorgeous beauty and a soaring voice as smooth as velvet. Whitney redefined the entire musical foundation of the 80s and 90s. However, behind hundreds of prestigious awards and historic sales records was a fragile soul gradually being drained. Whitney's life is a heartbreaking testament to how the aura of fame can become a suffocating glass cage. Her departure on a February afternoon in 2012 at the Beverly Hilton Hotel was not only a deeply saddening event, but also a wake-up call about the price of fame. From my perspective, Whitney Houston's tragedy stemmed from the overly high expectations of the public and the entertainment industry. They needed her to always be perfect, always a flawless angel. But Whitney was also just a woman carrying deep emotional wounds and immense work pressure. Her turning to glasses of champagne mixed with other substances was not the indulgence of someone craving pleasure. Rather, it was the silent cry for help from someone sinking under pressure. Alcohol for Whitney at that time seemed to be the only remedy helping her temporarily forget that she had to shoulder an entire music empire. Looking back at the journey of this golden rose, we cannot help but feel choked with emotion. I believe that deep down, Whitney always yearned for a peaceful life, to be loved and understood, but the entertainment industry did not give her that chance. Alcohol and misguided habits eroded the immune system and the heart of a legend. We remember Whitney not through the moments she lost her way, but through how she dedicated her entire youth to singing for humanity. Her story at Our Memory Vault remains a profound reminder. Behind a haughty star is sometimes a soul in desperate need of being embraced and sheltered. Jimi Hendrix. Although known to the world as a god of rock music, Jimi Hendrix's roots and soul were always deeply imbued with R&B and blues. In just 4 short years, he created an acoustic revolution, turning the electric guitar into a living entity with a soul. Jimi was the symbol of freedom, of a generation yearning to break all boundaries at the historic Woodstock Festival. However, that freedom seemed to exist only on his guitar-plucking fingers. In real life, Jimi was a man constrained by exploitative contracts and an exhausting touring schedule. The event of his permanent departure in 1970 in London, at only 27 years old, left an unfillable void in music history. Analyzing Jimi's life more deeply, I realize he was a victim of peak creativity and a heartless industry. In the 60s, the use of wine and sedatives was often romanticized as a way to stimulate art. But for someone with a highly sensitive heart like Jimi, it was the only tool to seek a full night of sleep. His harsh work schedule kept his nervous system in a state of extreme tension. He drank wine not for joyful indulgence, but to soothe the endless sounds echoing in a genius's mind. His departure on a tiring night was the consequence of both physical and mental exhaustion. From a humanistic perspective, Jimi Hendrix was a person carrying too many sorrows, but had no one to truly listen. Those around him only saw him as a money-making machine, an entertainer forgetting that he also needed rest. His departure leaves us a profound lesson about balance in life. No matter how great the talent, humans are still made of flesh, blood, and emotions. The epic song of Jimi Hendrix forever echoes on our memory vault, not only as a priceless acoustic legacy, but also as a heartbreaking tribute to geniuses who had to trade their vitality to bring beauty to the world. As we go deeper, we see even more how incredibly harsh it is behind the stage lights. What do you think about these tragedies? Please leave a comment to share with our memory vault. And now we will turn to the next page of memories, where another legend succumbed to the intoxication of alcohol. Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday, affectionately called Lady Day by her fans, possessed one of the most haunting and sorrowful voices in music history. Her singing voice needed no flashy techniques, for it was distilled from real-life pains, from the injustice and tears of a black woman living in the most fiercely segregated era of America. When she raised the melodies of Strange Fruit, the whole world had to fall silent before the power of truth. Yet behind the pride on stage, Billie's life was a long series of days submerged in clinging to alcohol and dependency-inducing substances to soothe unhealable emotional wounds. Looking at it profoundly, I believe Billie Holiday did not stumble due to personal weakness. She was the victim of a deeply cruel social system. She grew up lacking affection, faced mistreatment since childhood, and was constantly targeted by authorities simply because she dared to use music to fight for what was right. Alcohol and self-harming habits were actually a fragile shield, helping her temporarily forget that she was living in a world that did not welcome her. The fact that she took her last breath on a hospital bed in 1959 under strict supervision is one of the most agonizing images in American cultural history. I always hold a deep respect for Billie Holiday. She taught us that there are pains so great that people cannot overcome them on their own. Her reliance on alcohol was an indictment of the contemporary society's apathy toward the mental health of an artist. We honor her at our memory vault not only for her outstanding talent, but also for the resilience of a woman who dared to bring out her own pain to soothe the pain of humanity, even though she herself had to depart in absolute solitude and exhaustion. Natalie Cole. As the daughter of the great legend, Nat King Cole, Natalie Cole carried an innate artistic bloodline. She shone brilliantly with sweet soul and R&B tracks, especially the digitally engineered duet Unforgettable with her late father, bringing her countless Grammy Awards. But perhaps few understood the weight of the invisible crown she had to wear. Growing up under the overly large shadow of a legendary father pushed Natalie into deep psychological crises. In her youth, to face the pressure of proving herself and hidden sorrows, she turned to endless parties and glasses of strong liquor as a sedative. From an analytical standpoint, Natalie Cole's journey is a highly reflective story about family pressures. When you are born as the child of a king, the world does not allow you to be a normal person. Natalie's dependency on alcohol and stimulants in the 70s and 80s was her way of struggling to escape stereotypes, but it inadvertently pushed her down a path that damaged her health. The most admirable thing about Natalie is that she bravely awakened, fought the temptations, and came back strong. However, the physical damage caused by years of alcohol abuse silently ravaged her immune system and internal organs. The departure of Natalie Cole right on New Year's Eve in 2015 was a sad but also very beautiful, quiet note. In my opinion, her life was an epic about salvation. She proved to us that humans can absolutely stand up from the abyss and mend the mistakes of the past. Although the after effects of alcohol caused her to depart earlier than expected, she lived her final years in the pride and serenity of someone who had conquered herself. Natalie Cole remains forever a brilliant symbol on our memory vault, a testament showing that the endurance of the human spirit always shines brighter than any darkness of falling. Jackie Wilson. Jackie Wilson was once hailed by the world as Mr. Excitement. Whenever Jackie stepped onto the stage, he brought a blazing energy. His masterful dance steps and vibrant R&B voice made tens of thousands of audience members burst with emotion. Yet behind the image of a man always smiling and full of vitality was a body gradually wearing out from overwork. To maintain his tireless dynamic image during thousands of performance nights, Jackie turned himself into a victim of harmful habits, including the abuse of alcoholic beverages as a kind of fuel, forcing his body to operate. An analytical perspective shows that Jackie Wilson's tragedy is the sigh of a whole generation of Black artists who had to perform under the incredibly harsh conditions of that era. They had no time for proper rest or medical care. Alcohol for Jackie initially was just a small glass to boost his spirits before the curtains opened, but gradually it became a habit, eroding his cardiovascular system from the inside. On a fateful performance night in 1975, while singing the song Lonely Teardrops, his overly tired heart suddenly stopped its rhythm. He collapsed right on stage before the stunned eyes of thousands of fans. That event stripped away Jackie's vitality, pushing him into a deep coma lasting 9 long years before he truly passed away in 1984. This is a deeply heartbreaking truth. A man originally famous for the most agile movements had to lie motionless on a hospital bed for nearly a decade. At our Memory Vault, the story of Jackie Wilson is a highly humanistic reminder. Behind the soaring dance steps that captivate people's hearts are sometimes lonely tears and a heart having to endure pressure beyond a human's limits. The stories we just heard truly leave us with so much melancholy, don't they? But please stay with us, because the very next figure will bring an even more striking truth about the price of fame. Let us continue. Dinah Washington. During the golden era of jazz and blues, Dinah Washington reigned as an uncrowned queen. Possessing a sharp, sorrowful, yet highly authoritative voice, she could easily touch the softest, hidden corners in the listener's soul. Yet there was an incredibly bitter paradox in her life. A woman capable of absolute stage mastery completely lost her way in mastering herself. Dinah passed away when she had just turned 39 in age, when talent and career were still at their ripest. Her sudden departure on a winter night in 1963 was one of the biggest shocks to the music scene at that time, exposing the cruel dark corners of the entertainment industry. Many only know that Dinah Washington passed away due to a tragic mixture of medication and alcohol, but if we look deeper into the nature of the issue, we will see a tragedy of the era. During those years, the pressure regarding physical appearance for female artists, especially Black artists, was incredibly harsh. Dinah was always obsessed with her weight. To lose weight quickly to meet the vain standards of showbiz, she relied on weight loss medications containing strong stimulants. And to soothe the anxiety and restlessness caused by the medication's side effects, she continued to turn to glasses of strong liquor every night. That tragic combination caused her heart to stop beating right in her sleep. The story of the Queen of the Blues is not just a medical incident. It is an indictment against the strict prejudices that pushed a talent into a dead end. Dinah Washington drank alcohol not to find joy, but to find a bit of fake peace amidst the surrounding pressures. She sang for millions of people to hear, but no one listened to the voice of her heart. At our Memory Vault, we remember her with infinite sorrow. She left the world immortal melodies, but also left a tear-soaked lesson about loving one's own body instead of chasing flashy standards and trading one's life for them. For David Ruffin. David Ruffin was one of the lead vocals that created the soul for the legendary group The Temptations. When he raised the first lines of the song My Girl, the whole world seemed immersed in romance and sweetness. With a tall, slender physique, elegant suits, and signature horn-rimmed glasses, David appeared as the perfect gentleman of 60s R&B music. Yet behind that gallant exterior and radiant smile was a soul gradually cracking due to internal conflicts and the expansion of his personal ego. David Ruffin's fall was a long slide from the peak of glory down to the bottom of despair, where alcohol and temptations obscured an outstanding talent. Analyzing David's path, we clearly see the consequences of not being able to control the aura of fame. When fame came too fast, David's self-esteem gradually turned into arrogance, distancing him from the teammates who once stood shoulder to shoulder with him. When pushed out of the music group, he lost his most solid mental fulcrum. To run away from the feeling of failure and loneliness, David surrendered himself to endless revelries, where strong liquor was used as a medicine to numb his emotions. Especially when alcohol was combined with other substances, it created an incredibly toxic compound, destroying his nervous system and rapidly depleting his body. The image of David Ruffin passing away in an incredibly lonely situation in 1991 is a bitterly poignant contrast to his former elegance on stage. A voice once passionately adored by tens of thousands took its last breath in stillness, without stage lights, without applause. His tragedy reminds us that talent can take a person to the stars, but only bravery and humility help them stand firm on the ground. The story of David Ruffin remains a lingering low note, a profound wake-up call about protecting the soul against the traps of fame. Lopes. Lisa Lopes, known to the world by her stage name, Left Eye, was the highly charismatic soul of the famous girl group TLC. With a sharp rap style, eccentric fashion taste, and a lifestyle unafraid to break all rules, Lisa represented the voice of a young generation yearning to assert themselves. Precisely because of that rebellious image, along with impulsive mistakes in the past, the media and the public often easily labeled her as someone living a reckless life. When the news of her sudden passing at the age of 30 in an accident in Honduras was announced, many malicious rumors claimed that alcohol and a partying lifestyle took her life. But the truth is entirely the opposite, and deeply heartbreaking. In our role as keepers of memories, we need to view the incident through the most objective and humanistic lens. The truth is, at the time of the tragedy in 2002, Lisa did not use a single drop of alcohol or any stimulants. She was on a spiritual retreat in Honduras to seek peace, purify her body, and heal her mental wounds after many years working in an entertainment industry full of controversies. The car accident that took her life was simply an unfortunate event when she tried to swerve to avoid an obstacle on the road. The public hastily blaming alcohol just because she used to be an artist with an edgy image is a massive injustice to her efforts toward goodness in her final days. The story of Lisa Left Eye Lopes brings a highly profound lesson about the power of prejudice. We often too easily judge a person based on their past mistakes, while ignoring the yearnings for change quietly taking place. Lisa departed when she was at the most mature stage of her soul, when she was trying to slow down and stay away from the toxic chalices of fame. Although her life was short, her musical legacy and the truth about her self-healing efforts will always be cherished and corrected by our memory vault to return fairness to a star who burned herself out for art. Big Mama Thornton. In American music history, rare is a voice carrying the primal power and fierce explosion like Big Mama Thornton. She was the first to breathe soul into the legendary song Hound Dog, creating a real earthquake before it was reclaimed by the white music industry and turned into a launchpad for Elvis Presley. Despite possessing an innate talent, her destiny was the saddest blues song. In her final years, instead of living in the luxury of a legend, she took her last breath in a shabby boarding house in Los Angeles in 1984, with a liver completely destroyed by alcohol. From an in-depth analytical perspective, the fall of Big Mama Thornton is not simply a story about an artist lacking bravery. It is the bitter consequence of an era where racial discrimination and the exploitation of artistic labor took place openly. She had to stand and watch other artists become millionaires thanks to her own song, while she herself only received cheap compensation. For a black woman carrying an immense pride, that injustice was a wound that never healed. Alcohol in her circumstances was no longer a recreational beverage, but a numbing agent helping her temporarily forget the ungratefulness of the world. At our Memory Vault, we view the departure of Big Mama Thornton as a strict sentence sent to the entertainment industry. She drank bitter glasses of alcohol to swallow unspeakable resentments. Her physical exhaustion was the result of decades of having to brace herself against injustice. Although she passed away in poverty, her proud roar in her blues tracks will forever remain an indelible part of cultural heritage, reminding us of the exorbitant price pioneers had to pay. Grover Washington Jr. Grover Washington Jr. is honored by the world as one of the greatest foundation layers for the smooth jazz genre. His saxophone sound in musical works like Just the Two of Us or Mr. Magic always brought a smooth, luxurious, and highly healing feeling. With an always calm exterior and measured performance demeanor, few suspected that behind that tranquility was a body having to endure silent damages. On a December evening in 1999, right after completing a recording session for a television program, he completely collapsed in the waiting room and never woke up again. When diving deep into the cause of Grover's departure at the age of 56, we realize a very real but often ignored hidden corner in the artist community, the trap of social drinking. Unlike stars sliding down in orgiastic parties, Grover seemed to only maintain the habit of having a little wine to relax after stressful working hours. However, from a medical and psychological standpoint, the reliance on alcoholic beverages in any form, when prolonged over decades, will silently ravage the cardiovascular system. Alcohol hardened his blood vessel walls, increased blood pressure, and ultimately led to a devastating heart attack, taking his life right when his career was at its most brilliant. The story of Grover Washington Jr. brings a deeply reflective message. Sometimes self-destruction does not come from great storms, but from calm yet persistent undercurrents. The pressure of always having to maintain perfection, always having to be the bridge between jazz and R&B, made him turn to alcohol as a mental rest stop. He spent his whole life blowing out melodies that soothed the audience's hearts but could not protect his own heart. The legacy he left behind is priceless, but his sudden departure remains forever a highly poignant, quiet note. Rufus Thomas. Rufus Thomas is an iconic name, a spiritual father of the Memphis soul genre and the renowned Stax Records label. Unlike artists with short-lived careers, Rufus fully dedicated a whole lifetime to the stage lights, bringing joyful dances and never depleting energy through hits like Walking the Dog. He lived to be 84 years old, a rare age on the list of R&B legends full of turbulence. However, his passing due to chronic heart failure in 2001 carries a much more complex meaning when people look back at the lifestyle habits associated with his era. Looking back at the context of the golden years at black nightclubs, we clearly see that holding a glass of alcohol was not just a habit, but almost a mandatory cultural networking practice for an artist. Rufus Thomas lived and breathed in that atmosphere for over half a century. An analytical perspective shows that although he did not pass away from a sudden alcohol shock like younger artists, the accumulation of thousands of glasses of alcohol after exhausting performance nights silently stripped away the strength of his heart muscle. His heart had to bear the burden not only of the rhythm of music, but also the physical toll from the lifestyle of a vaudeville artist at that time. Evaluating the departure of Rufus Thomas through the lens of being ravaged by alcohol is not a judgment, but a truthful acknowledgement of the price of dedication. He dedicated his entire youth and twilight years to pleasing the audience, accepting to immerse himself in endless revelries backstage, to maintain the flame of passion and industry relationships. Although his heart finally surrendered to time and the after effects of alcohol, his radiant smile and optimistic spirit will forever be the most brilliant, proudest chapter carefully preserved in the memories of those who love soul music. Clyde McPhatter. Clyde McPhatter was one of the most outstanding tenor voices who laid the first foundational brick for the intersection between gospel music and R&B when leading the legendary group, The Drifters. In the early 50s, his elegant, highly emotional singing voice opened a new era for American popular music. However, it was truly ironic that the pioneer paving the way could not find an exit for his own life. Clyde passed away in 1972 at only 39 years old, with a completely exhausted body, a heavily damaged liver, and a heart that stopped beating due to the damages of chronic alcohol dependency. If we analyze deeply into his psychological progression, the tragedy of Clyde McPhatter is the ultimate pain of someone forgotten by the era. Despite possessing outstanding talent, when he decided to split off to sing solo, he could not maintain the aura of fame. Even more painfully, he had to stand and watch younger artists who came after using the very style he painstakingly created step onto the podium of glory and rake in millions of dollars. The feeling of being replaced, of being pushed to the margins of the entertainment industry struck down the pride of a talented man. He turned to strong glasses of liquor, not to celebrate, but to run away from harsh reality and numb the feeling of failure gnawing at his soul every night. The death of Clyde McPhatter at his most vigorous age is a strong indictment against the cruel elimination nature of showbiz. A great talent had to live his final years in destitution, wandering through small clubs and making friends with cheap bottles of liquor. We remember him at our memory vault with infinite sorrow. Clyde McPhatter used his singing voice to light the path for thousands of other artists, but let himself wither away in the darkness of frustration and bitter alcohol fumes. Esther Phillips. Esther Phillips, once known by the stage name Little Esther, was a rare musical phenomenon as she shone brilliantly from the age of 13. With a raspy, highly nuanced voice and the ability to convey emotions far beyond her age, she conquered the R&B charts very early on. However, being thrust into the adult world of nightclubs, engulfed in smoke and the complexity of the entertainment industry when her soul was still too tender, left indelible scars. She passed away in 1984 at the age of 48 due to severe liver and kidney failure, the consequence of prolonged reliance on alcohol and substances over many decades. When reflecting on the life of Esther Phillips, we must face an aching truth, the consequences of stealing the childhoods of artistic prodigies. Esther did not have the chance to grow up normally. Financial pressures, exploitation by management, and a toxic work environment shaped her misguided habits. Alcohol and addictive substances initially were just things she mimicked from adults to fit in, but later became the only crutch helping her stand firm against the pressure of fame. Although she possessed extraordinary willpower, having successfully gone to rehab and made a spectacular comeback during the disco era, the biological debts caused by alcohol in the past were irreversible. The biggest tragedy of Esther Phillips is that she departed right when her career was flourishing again, when she had found peace in her soul after years of storms. However, her liver and kidneys were exhausted before she could embrace new glories. Esther's departure is a sad love song, reminding us of the fragility of child stars. Her legacy is not just immortal songs, but also a costly lesson about protecting the younger generation against the cruel temptations of the aura of fame. Otis Blackwell. Otis Blackwell might not be a name as familiar to the masses as the image of a singer holding a microphone, but he was the great brain behind world-shaking hits like Don't Be Cruel or Great Balls of Fire. He was the one who penned and shaped the style for white legends like Elvis Presley or Jerry Lee Lewis. However, the bitter paradox of the 50s music industry placed Otis in a highly melancholy position, a black genius having to stand in the shadows to watch other artists shine using his own intellect. The pressure of constantly having to squeeze his creative energy dry, resonating with the invisible sadness of an artist standing backstage, pushed him into the habit of borrowing bourbon to find solace. From a profoundly analytical perspective, Otis Blackwell's drinking habit did not bear the appearance of noisy, orgiastic parties. It was the gnawing loneliness of a writer. Bourbon for him was like a catalyst to spark inspiration, but simultaneously a sedative, helping him accept the unjust reality of the era. Decades of being friends with alcoholic beverages silently eroded his cardiovascular system. When a person enters their twilight years, those accumulated damages begin to speak up. The weakening of his blood vessel walls due to the aftereffects of alcohol led to a severe stroke in 1991, leaving him paralyzed, and he finally passed away in 2002. The story of Otis Blackwell brings us a thought-provoking stillness at our memory vault. He is proof that the mental trauma of being suppressed in the shadows is sometimes even more terrifying than physical illnesses. Alcohol took away the lucidity and health of a genius musician, but it could not erase the massive legacy he left behind. His musical notes changed the entire American popular culture. His departure is a heartbreaking reminder of how we once inadvertently forgot the silent people, paving the way for history, leaving them to fight loneliness and alcohol fumes on their own until the very end of their lives. Arthur Conley. Arthur Conley was once expected to be the most worthy successor to the legend Otis Redding. With the song Sweet Soul Music, he brought a brilliant, fresh energy lighting up the 60s music charts. Yet behind that radiant smile and sweet voice was a life full of fears and internal conflicts. Unlike artists of his time, Arthur carried within him a secret about his sexual orientation, something that American society at the time, especially the conservative soul music community, found entirely unacceptable. To run away from stigma and cruel prejudices, he chose to leave his homeland, changed his name to Lee Roberts, and lived his final years in seclusion in the Netherlands. There is information that alcohol dependency directly caused the intestinal cancer that took his life in 2003. However, from a medical and psychological perspective, placing the blame entirely on alcohol is a somewhat one-sided view. Certainly, alcohol is a risk factor, and Arthur used the intoxication of alcohol as a way to soothe the loneliness of an exile, a person who had to give up his real name to live in peace. But his real tragedy lay in the mental tumors accumulated from suppression, solitude, and the pain of being rejected. The human immune system always has a tight connection with mental health, and a soul always burdened with sorrow will cause the body to lose its ability to protect itself. Looking back at the journey of Arthur Conley, we at our Memory Vault feel a deep respect mixed with melancholy. He chose to trade his brilliant aura for the freedom of his soul, even though that freedom had to be paid for with lonely years in a foreign land. His departure was not only the consequence of illness or glasses of sorrow drowning alcohol, but it reflected the harshness of an era not yet tolerant enough. Arthur Conley remains forever a symbol of courage, a sweet singing voice that chose to fade into stillness to protect his own self-respect. O.V. Wright. O.V. Wright did not just sing soul music, he poured his guts out to turn them into sound. His singing voice carried a nuance so melancholic, painful and yearning that listeners always had the feeling he was facing some tragedy in real life. And indeed, behind hits like A Nickel and a Nail or 8 Men, 4 Women was a soul writhing to bear internal conflicts. O.V. Wright hailed from gospel music, but chose to step onto the path of secular music. The contradiction between religious faith and the temptations of the entertainment world created a large void in his psychology, causing him to turn to alcohol and substances as a way to run away from his own judgment. Analyzing the case of O.V. Wright music, psychologists often use the term emotional exhaustion. Continuously having to convey painful, agonizing emotions on stage eroded the boundary between his art and reality. Alcohol and substance dependency were not simply about indulgence. They served as a way to numb his emotional exhaustion after the velvet curtain closed. However, this heavy reliance placed an immense and continuous strain on his heart over many years. His sudden passing in 1980 from heart complications at only 41 years old remains one of the most sorrowful losses for the Southern soul genre. The story of O.V. Wright at our Memory Vault brings a deeply moving message about the fragile boundaries of an artist. He sang on behalf of the heartache of millions, yet he carried his own burdens entirely alone. His struggles were the quiet cry for help from a man who was profoundly sensitive to life. Looking back at his legacy, we cannot help but feel a profound sense of melancholy. The most beautiful musical notes are sometimes born at the cost of the very peace and well-being of their creator. Wright remains forever a strange phenomenon, someone who burned out at the age of 41, leaving echoes that will never fade. Lexii Alijai. The final figure on our list is not a legend from the last century, but a highly promising young talent of the 21st century female rapper, Lexii Alijai. Including a Gen Z hip-hop artist in this list is not a mistake, but a highly profound cautionary intention. Lexii departed right on the first day of the new year 2020 when she was only 21 years old. A radiant future waiting contracts unfinished music projects, all closed forever after a night of partying. Unlike previous generations gradually ravaged by alcohol, Lexii's departure was a lightning-fast tragedy of the new era of fatal interaction between alcohol and synthetic substances. From the perspective of modern medical analysis, the original script is somewhat one-sided when only mentioning alcohol. The true cause that took the life of this young girl was a tragic interaction between alcohol and fentanyl, a highly potent, pain-relieving medication. In modern youth parties, impulsiveness and a lack of understanding about the chemical interactions between stimulants have created countless fatal traps. Alcohol, in this case, acted as an extremely strong catalyst, enhancing the effects of fentanyl, leading to respiratory depression and causing her heart to stop beating right in her sleep without any warning signs. Retelling the story of Lexii Alijai at our Memory Vault carries the meaning of a bridge between generations. Our older audiences can see through this a strong message to remind and protect their children and grandchildren. The glamour of the entertainment industry, whether in the 60s or 2020, always harbors the same dark corners. Whether an aging legend or a 21-year-old girl in the prime of her youth, human life remains far too fragile before the temptations of stimulants. Lexii's departure is a painful sigh, closing this heartbreaking list with a lesson that never gets old. Ladies and gentlemen, the journey looking back at 19 legendary lives comes to a close here. The greatest value we retain from this video is not judgment, but deep empathy for the cruel pressures of the spotlight, along with a priceless lesson about cherishing health and peace of mind. The Our Memory Vault channel sincerely thanks you for listening. We wish you always have joyful, warm, and meaningful moments with your family and loved ones. Do not forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell to always receive our earliest stories. Goodbye and see you again.